in studio. And I tell you, I've read a couple of his books, and they were powerful. I read when I was on vacation last week, and my dad, who's a chemist and also an oral surgeon and a doctor, dentist, doctor of dental surgery, read it. And it's everything I grew up hearing. It's really well-known science about epigenetics. And if you don't get the nutrients you need, that's what triggers the genetic predisposition. What's the word? Predisposition. Yes, predisposition to have those problems. A lot of people have a that's that one word I can't say. Predisposition. When I get in a hurry, I can't talk. Have a predisposition. If you smoke a bunch of cigarettes, you're going to get lung cancer. Somebody else can live to 105 and smoke cigarettes. They had genetics that were much stronger to not get lung cancer, but they might not be able to handle cold water as much and die of hydrothermia a lot quicker. I mean, that's the thing about genetics. Some people can bench press more. Some women can have 10 babies. Other women can only have one. Some people have better eyesight. Others don't. So it's nature and nurture. But they're telling you there's no nurture involved. It's all nature, your genes you've got. Well, you may have the best genes for the best heart out there in the world. If I go in there and shoot you in the heart, you're going to die probably. If I put a 12 gauge up to you with buckshot and pull the trigger right into your heart. So this is mainline science. And I read the book before we started selling it. And it's powerful. And it's revolutionary. And this is where he discovered all this, being one of the top zoologists, veterinarians in the country. He was tasked and became famous. I remember him being on TV when I was a kid, white rhinos and other things, with being able to keep animals alive at zoos. They didn't know why they were dying. Well, they were giving them these Purina and other feeds. Not knocking Purina, it's just that they didn't have trace elements they needed. And so it's big money in keeping the tigers, the lions, the bears, oh my, alive. That's how he got into this. I tend to start a lot of hours with this now, saying I feel like I'm in an episode of Outer Limits or The Twilight Zone. Over 100,000 American contractors are in Iraq. 200 of them are surrounded by jihadists now. That's up on Infowars.com and DrudgeReport.com. Oil prices are soaring right now. There's an exodus of 800,000 refugees, the UN says. Christians are on the run in Iraq. Medieval Sharia law imposed. Christians are being lined up and shot in the back of the head. There's video of this. They are flying the flags of Al-Qaeda, Saudi Arabia, and the Iraq, quote, caliphate. These are Wahhabists. And they are in brand new SUV, Mercedes, and Toyotas with heavy rockets and machine guns and rocket launchers. And you can look at the photos and the video. They are chanting bin Laden, and they were funded in the West and given bases to attack Syria. And the media thinks you're so dumb, the general public, that you can't find it on a map, that you don't know the difference between a Shiite and a Sunni. And this is it, folks. I mean, it is on. In fact, mainstream media is allowed to show it. Every time we show beheadings or people being killed, you know, they'll try to knock us off YouTube and stuff, and I reach tens of millions every week on that. But you can go see the videos for yourself. I'm going to do a special report after the radio today. They'll be on the nightly news, and I am sick to my stomach right now. The globalists are creating a worldwide crisis to play governments off against each other. There are no more nations. There are no more countries, in their view. They're dissolving the last vestiges of it. They're getting rid of our healthcare system. They've been the best in the world. They're bringing in death care on record. What you see at the VA with the death list, the secret death list, now confirmed. Evil is unlimited when we have no standards. It's because no one has been held accountable for Fast and Furious, Benghazi, Solyndra, all these criminal wars, lying to go into Iraq when it was Saudi Arabia that they said attacked us. And then we go attack the arch enemy of Saudi Arabia at the time, even above Iran, was Saddam Hussein, who'd been a CIA officer in 58, trained as an army captain, committed assassinations in Iraq, overthrew the government, was made president in 1979. This is all on record. Was given $40 billion to attack the Iranians. Was told to invade Kuwait by the CIA. They said, yo, you're our proxy army, you invade, to pay us the money back. When he invaded, they went on the news, called him Sodom, which means Sodom and Gomorrah. All the Arabs heard that. All the Muslims heard that as he was calling him a sodomite. Our president was calling him, anal sex Saddam. I mean, that's what it translates to. Infidel Saddam. And so they destroy that country, kill over 1 million Iraqis, and then now the final plan. Go back in 2003, wreck the whole place, bring in Monsanto. 5 million Iraqis have left the country, over 1 million dead. This is incredible. We're going to shift gears into something we can do something about here in a moment, but the public's total ignorance of this, and now the country, Baghdad falling, the government falling, because it's full of globalist appointed people who've been paid off with the $80 billion in $100 bills that have been flown in there. They're all being told, stand down, leave. Just like the Vichy French stood down for Hitler. 90+%, some estimates are, of the general staff stood down and became the new leaders of France. See, no one knows history, so they're doomed to repeat it. This is an internal takedown operation. How do you think the globalists took over America? They took it over by paying off the politicians and putting their people in over the last 50 years. Same thing. That's why they're so hard to beat, folks. The Federal Reserve isn't federal. It's the IMF and the World Bank. We've had their own insiders like John Perkins come on, the economic hitman. And if he couldn't bring them down, they sent in hit teams to kill people. Hit teams to kill leaders that don't take the payoff. You will have a carpet of gold or a carpet of bombs. They are turning the whole Middle East and Africa over to Al-Qaeda now to murder Christians en masse. The UN admits it. 300,000 dead, 200,000 of them Christians in the oldest Christian community after Israel in the world. That is Syria. You think it's bad to arm Al-Qaeda to attack and kill Christians in Syria? Folks, they're killing every Christian they find. That's in mainstream news today. And I don't care if it's a Muslim they kill or a Christian. It's just that our government is funding people and giving them weapons. Those weapons are U.S., NATO, Saudi Arabian, Qatari, French, and British. And I'll bet money there's British special forces and Saudi Arabian special forces. I've got mainstream articles right here from 2006 where they caught British intelligence dressed up like Al-Qaeda killing Shiites. Remember that in Basra? Folks, put it up on screen for them. We can pull that article up. You just type in British commandos, freed from jail. They sent tanks into the jail to get them back from the Iraqi army. British commandos caught dressed up like Arabs. I've got it right here. British special forces caught dressed up as Arab terrorists. See, it's the same story, folks. They had Saudi Arabia already take over half the Middle East, 1901 to 1931. Now they're going to take everything over and most of Africa. They're the secret army. Everybody knows the CIA founded the modern Al-Qaeda. Folks, it's beyond that, okay? Now, for the balance of the hour, we're very honored to have him. We're also going to get an interview with him. He's got the time for the nightly news while he's here. I read his book a few weeks ago when I was on vacation. My dad, who's an oral surgeon but also had a background in chemistry and worked at cancer facilities like MD Anderson before he changed careers and decided to become a dentist because my mom got pregnant. It was a quicker career path. Epigenetics, the death of genetic theory of disease transmission. My dad said, this is all just mainline science. It's been known for decades, but none of it's implemented. And he said, this is completely groundbreaking, though, that it's all been put together and that he was involved in so much animal testing, but not mean animal testing, humane animal testing by feeding animals the trace elements and things they needed versus the ones that weren't getting it when he was a top zoologist veterinarian. I'm not going to reintroduce all that today with Dr. Wallach, but the book is by Joel D. Wallach, BS, DVM, ND, and also by PhD and others. And we're going to go over all of that today. But it's got 3 authors. Epigenetics, this could change everybody's lives. Because, yes, genes affect us, but there's switches. And that's the issue. There's nature, but there's also nurture. And so Dr. Joel D. Wallach is here with us. The book is available at InfoWarsStore.com. So you get valuable information. And you also support everything else we're doing for free speech. So find out there. He also heads up Longevity, or is the founder of it and the researcher. His son heads it up. He's separate from it. And you can find all that at InfoWarsHealth.com or InfoWarsTeam.com if you want to become a distributor. But we're not going to harp on that too much today. This book, forward by Jeffrey S. Bland, Ph.D., is your masterwork. What do they call that? Your magna opus. Great job. Tell folks about the book, and thank you for coming to visit us here in Austin.
Well, thank you so much, Alex. Gosh, what a great introduction. I really, really appreciate that, and appreciate being picked up by your dad at the airport. What a great guy. First time I met him, just super, super.
Well, he works with us full time now.
Yeah.
Obamacare, he was managing over 20 dental offices and medical facilities, and he went ahead and stopped doing that.
Well, you got a great man there. I just really enjoyed him from the airport. Thank you.
Thank you.
But, yeah, the book represents 40 years of collecting information, plus on my own personal research with universities, the National Institutes of Health, the National Science Foundation. And by the way, when it comes to care of animals, I'm one of the 5 authors of the Animal Welfare Act of 1964 to protect animals from cruelty, because medical doctors, when they'd have laboratory animals on experiments, they'd go away with the weekend and they wouldn't pay anybody to clean up after them and feed them and water them. And they would eat each other, cannibalize each other over the weekends. And they would make up data to finish the experiment because the animals had eaten each other because they didn't take care of them. So I wrote this Animal Welfare Act, which was passed in 1964. It's been in place since then. So I'm very proud of that.
And I've had your lawyers on that are some of the most famous lawyers out there. You are responsible and longevity for most of the big cases, keeping supplements legal. I mean, literally, people ought to be kissing your butt, but most folks don't even know. People don't know who Chuck Yeager is now. They just don't know anything.
Well, yeah, Jonathan Emord, the lawyer, he actually helped us sue the FDA 8 times in federal court. We prevailed every time. And in one case, we actually went up to the Supreme Court, and they signed off on the suit, and we won it by default. So very proud of those things. And because of that, we have folic acid in prenatal vitamins to prevent spina bifida now.
That was your discovery.
That was it. And then also we got the ability to say you can prevent stroke and coronary thrombosis and pulmonary embolism by supplementing with omega-3 essential fatty acids. I got that one through a lawsuit.
This is too important. Skip the network break. Keep going.
Okay. And then the one I really love is you can prevent cancer by supplementing with selenium. And they just fought tooth and nail to keep that.
But finally, they admit that.
Well, they didn't admit it, but the federal judge gave it to us. Okay.
But I mean, in mainline medical literature, they now admit that.
Well, yes.
I mean, they admit if you don't have this, you're going to get this. I mean, your genes, your body needs this.
Well, you've said it exactly right, Alex. And that's the whole.
I read your book.
You said it exactly right. That you can have the greatest genes in the world, but if you don't give them the raw materials, and your dad and I had this great discussion about the minerals that are necessary as cofactors and catalysts for the genes to work, for the DNA to work, for the RNA to work, you can have DNA that will get you to live to be 200 in a healthful way. But if you're not getting these cofactors, you might die at 48 of a heart attack, even though you have the potential, the capacity to get to.
And that's been proven by the marathon runners or some of the shortest lived people because they're not getting the minerals.
Exactly. And they sweat out what they do get.
Yeah, they're drinking 3 minerals, not all the dozens more they need.
That's right. The sports drinks that they use preferentially because of advertisement has 2 minerals in it. The next one has 6 minerals. Our Rebound has 100 nutrients in it, including 77 minerals.
And now it's the hottest thing in the NBA.
Exactly. NBA, the hockey leagues in Canada, the United States, the soccer leagues. And we have the Harlem Globetrotters. The entire team uses it. The the team from Colorado, the Denver Nuggets. The entire team uses this stuff, and so we're very, very excited about this because they're setting the example. It's very tragic. We have about 10,000 kids under the age of 18 who drop dead suddenly each year.
Playing basketball.
Almost all basketball players.
And they kept wondering why, and then
it's a selenium deficiency. They get cardiomyopathy, heart attacks.
The heart needs a selenium. It's electrochemical. It runs out of gas. Zip.
Exactly, and it causes sudden death. And I went to China and actually did 1,700 autopsies on kids under the age of 10 that died in Qishan province from this disease. Got it published. And it was for other things, but for cystic fibrosis and muscular dystrophy, which are more stories. But, and so all these pieces of information are in this book, Epigenetics, and it teaches people how to maximize their life.
Well, I mean, our genetics are the same as they were 50 years ago. Why is breast cancer up 3,000%? No one just, well, we know there's glyphosates. We're not getting the proper minerals. I mean, it's real simple. I mean, but they never want to discuss why all these diseases are off the chart. You know the story of Ted Anderson's dad had Alzheimer's.
Oh, yes.
And then he literally came back, knew who he was, could go fishing, had short-term, long-term memory. And the doctor said, hey, you got vitamin K in your blood. Are you eating spinach? You're not supposed to be doing that. I have you on Coumadin, so you won't have strokes. And ordered him off, and they followed the order, and his dad didn't know who he was in a month. I mean, that's literally like sacrificing yourself. And I have the authorization to tell the story, so I tell it, where people do what the doctor tells them.
Well, you've got your finger on the pulse of what is happening. I just really appreciate you so much because of that. I think you're probably the most well-informed person in America. And you're exactly right. Doctors just look at charts, and I used to think they're criminals, but I think they're just ignorant. And
well, they have Dead Doctors Don't Lie, your syndicated radio program. Tell us about that. I mean, that doesn't lie. They don't live too long.
Well, the average lifespan, Alex, of a medical doctor is 56. Why would anybody want to listen to somebody whose average lifespan is 56 to learn how to live to be 100 and healthy?
I want to listen to an old black lady in East Texas who lived to be 106 because she ate clay out of her backyard every week.
Well, she was getting minerals, wasn't she?
Yeah, I mean, those old black women, they go, you can see them to this day, and other people now copy them, and they sell it. As you know, they go and they smell it, they taste it, and they get the clay out of the clay banks. And just like you'll catch pregnant women, wanting clay, wanting dirt. That's because what do deer go? They'll go and find dirt that has salt and minerals and start eating it. That's what mammals do.
You're exactly right. And of course, the Indian nations, Alex, used to fight wars over clay beds because they knew that their women would be fertile, they'd have normal births, the children would be born without birth defects if these women got access to the clay. It was very, very important for the survival of their nations. And we got into trouble. We know the exact moment that happened. It was at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Monday, September 4th, 1882. On Pearl Street in New York City, our health ended in America. And at that moment, at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Monday, September 4th, 1882, on Pearl Street in New York City, Thomas Edison pulled the switch on the first commercial electric generating plant. Within 10 years, Alex, every industrialized nation switched from wood as the universal fuel to electricity. What happened was we no longer had the source of trace minerals and major minerals that we've been using for nutritional supplements for thousands and thousands and thousands of years, which was wood ashes, which we'd been putting in the garden. Well, now we went to electricity. We didn't have the wood ashes anymore, so we lost that source. We dammed up the river to make more electricity and stop the flooding, so we didn't have the silt being re-impregnated into the fields every year when the river flooded. Stop that. After 25 years of the plant sucking the minerals out of the soil, we had to go to chemical fertilizers just to get yields and growth.
That then killed the microbes.
You got it. No nutrition, no microbes, and that's why America is sick. And that's
now look at that incredible chain reaction that's on record, that's in your book. The book's just, you can't put it down, folks. This is, every page is like that with all the footnotes. And when you know history, it's even more intriguing because you know it's true. It's just like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. Think of all the GMO and all the stuff they're doing now, what the chain reactions of that are going to be.
Well, you have no defenses because you don't have any nutrition unless you're supplementing with the 90.
Which is in the Beyond Tangy Tangerine.
Exactly.
2.0.
You got it, 2.0. That's my favorite. The 2.0, you're getting all 90 essential nutrients. And if you don't have those things, you cannot protect yourself against all the chemicals in our environment and our food. You just can't do it.
Well, I've been doing Beyond Tangy Tangerine, now the 2.0, for about 4 years, and it's been life-changing for me. I mean, I was really unhealthy. I'm still not as good as I should be, but it's been a big reversal. I've turned the ship around. I've lost over 50-plus pounds now. I've got more energy than I ever had, and it is all the supplementation. And the other supplements I took, I didn't know they were chemical. I didn't know they were synthetic. I didn't understand why they weren't working. And so I was like, I'm not going to take supplements. But when I use the longevity products at InfowarsHealth.com, or when I use the InfowarsLife.com products that we've developed, you know, it's simple, but it's pure, it's organic, it's supercharged, and I'm literally high as a kite on life now.
Well, you're high as a kite. I've never seen anybody with as much energy as you have. I want to do what you're doing.
Oh, 1 cup of coffee a day now. So.
Well, of course, we're a coffee company, too, so we love coffee. And I'm very excited that...
it has a lot of health benefits, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah. Coffee itself has been shown to reduce your risk of Parkinson's disease, rheumatoid arthritis. And so there's tremendous health benefit of coffee because of the antioxidants in the coffee. Coffee's an herb. Wonderful stuff. We love it. Ours, of course, is Java Fit, great coffee. And we bought our own plantations now in Nicaragua. And so we know they're organic because we make sure they're organic. And we built schools there for the kids, for all the people who work the plantations. They're fair trade. They're all organic. And our coffee's just going crazy.
Awesome. Let's expand on the documentation in the book. I mean, just go through it chapter by chapter if you can. This is the one book everybody needs to read.
Absolutely. Of course, people have to appreciate, Alex, that the halls of science are filled with failed medical theories. Thousands of failed medical theories over the years.
Okay, I'm going to interrupt again, and I want him to turn my mic off because I'm just going to say this. This is what's so powerful here. Mm-hmm. This isn't even just about epigenetics. You assault the cult and all the other failed cults and prove that it's a failed cult, and if we don't turn it around, we're dead. Break it down.
Okay. Well, the important part, the reason why people have to spend the time to read the book and do what it asks them to do is because our children are not going to live as long as us. Our children are the first generation that experts say will not live as long as their parents. And that's because there's no nutrition in the food, and they're following the false precepts of the medical system. You go back to the beginning of time when things were written down in hieroglyphics and stone art and things. Doctors and physicians and philosophers and shamans and sorcerers believed that disease was caused by evil spirits, and the way to protect yourself was to burn goats to the evil spirits and make them happy, and then they'd look kindly upon you.
And the Greeks thought spontaneous generation, maggots just came out of meat.
That's exactly right, spontaneous generation. And then another one was the four humors, and if they didn't, black bile, yellow bile, phlegm, and blood, and if you were sick, that means they were out of balance, and they invented bloodletting about 2,000 years ago. They killed our first president, George Washington, who had dodged all the bullets from the British. And
the father of psychiatry killed him.
Yeah, exactly. Killed him by bloodletting. And they still did bloodletting in America up until 1920. Now, here comes one that I've been looking for this for 35 years, and I found it, Alex. And that is the first scientific article that showed that saturated fats were unhealthy and the vegetable oils and the unsaturated fats, olive oil, coconut oil, were healthy. I've looked for 35 years, and I finally found it 2 months ago in a 2 full-page article in the Wall Street Journal. They did research, 2 full pages. The story goes back to 1901. There's a German scientist by the name of Wilhelm Naumann who invented a machine lubricant for big factories. He made it out of cottonseed oil and also using a little cofactor called copper to turn it into a solid, and they couldn't sell it as soap because people were making soap, and so Procter & Gamble bought it from him and sold it as a food called Crisco, and they killed animal fats, butter and cream, and lard to sell Crisco.
And they had propagandists like Edward Bernays come out and demonize it, and what Dr. Wallach is getting into here today is the cult-like false science. There's a lot of good stuff if your leg's broken or, you've got a subdermal hematoma. Medical doctors are great. But now even what we know is medical doctors are turning into state-run, computerized people that just do what the death panels tell them. And notice now there's death panels at the VA. All that was real. We know how this works. The rationing, all of it. That's why we better do something here, ladies and gentlemen. We had better get as healthy as we can. And I don't care how unhealthy you are. You're usually not too far gone in my experience. And you can start reversing what's happened. And I've done it in my own life. People can see the difference. I weigh 277 pounds. And I've gotten down to 220 something. I want to go down to 185 like I used to be. But it's a process, and it's happening even with my off-the-chart stressful life. Even with only getting to exercise sometimes once or twice a week. I was exercising 7 days a week 4 or 5 years ago trying to lose weight. It wasn't working. Exercise twice a week now. Eat a little bit better. Take the longevity products, InfowarsHealth.com. Take the Survival Shield, super nascent iodine from the Pure Crystals, the Super Male Vitality from InfowarsLife.com. It has been so amazing for me. and you've heard the rave reviews. So please, you're also supporting the free speech operation, everything else we do when you visit InfoWarsStore.com, InfoWarsLife.com, InfoWarsHealth.com. And you can also go to InfoWarsTeam.com. That's the place to go if you want to be a distributor and get discounts from your distributor. It's like $10 to sign up. You can sign up and get free auto shipping there at InfoWarsTeam.com or InfoWarsLife.com and then get free shipping. You can go there and find the book, Epigenetics, The Death of the Greatest Theory of Disease Transmission. And you can also, when you're a member of InfoWarsHealth.com, go to the speaking events that Dr. Wallach, many of the events that he's at. You're speaking tonight in Dallas. Might be too late for that. I'm told most of these are sold out. But how do folks go to that? Some of them are free events. Some of them are paid events when you got a hotel and a dinner. Obviously, you got to pay for that. But what's going on in Dallas, some of the other speaking engagements you're on, and I want to give you the floor to really go through the book with people and give them some of the secrets that weren't secrets 100 years ago, so we can really fight back against this sickness system where not the doctors, but the brain bugs up top, the Rockefeller-run medicine, they know exactly what they're doing.
You're exactly right. And of course, the Rockefellers, they go way back to the beginning of 1914 in what was called the Flexner Report. The Rockefellers and the Carnegies paid for a report to be made on all of the various medical schools, about 132 medical schools, and they funded 32 of them because they sold the products that the Carnegies and the Rockefellers sold. And they didn't give any money to the other medical schools, so they just dried up and died. They paid legislators at the federal and the state levels to make medical doctors king, if you will. They protected monopolies, self-policing, and they also paid to have all their competition made into third-class citizens who would not be paid by insurance.
Because competition's a sin, as John D. Rockefeller said. I interrupted, though, with the break. Going back, finish up with the machine oils, what we eat.
Okay, well, yes, the Crisco started out as a machine oil for all these huge factories in Europe and the United States. And Procter & Gamble bought it initially to make soap out of it. And there was resistance from mom and grandmom because they were making their own soap. And so they had to figure out that, we could probably sell more of this stuff, this machine oil, as food than we can as soap. And so they began to sell it as food. They got resistance again because grandma and mom had been using lard and cream and butter for centuries. And so they got Ansel Keys, who's another Nazi sympathizer who was on the board of the American Heart Association.
And of course, the Nazis on record, they weren't going to just conquer the whole world militarily. And I've got to dig out these documents. It's in some documentaries I saw a long time ago and read about as well. They were going to take over with soft kill, where they adulterated the food and water. They put fluoride in to slowly weaken the population they were in control of. They wanted a stealth kill. And in one Nazi document, they described it like, if you wanted to get rid of wild dogs, you would just poison their water hole. And then they'll never know because it's a slow kill, flavorless poison that they were recommending. And so that's why. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no. It's all good stuff, Alex. You're right on target. And that's why everybody loves you.
No, continue, though. Okay. It's just they're so diabolical.
Now, that's the right word. That's the right word. And so Procter & Gamble said, we can't sell it as soap. We can't sell it as a machine oil anymore because the main original guys who made it were selling it faster than they could. And so we're going to sell it as food. And they couldn't, they were getting resistance. And so this Ansel Keys, who was on the board of the American Heart Association and on the board of Procter & Gamble, he says, well, let's sell it as a replacement for animal fats. And they came up with an advertising scheme to replace cream and butter and lard with this Crisco, which was a machine oil. They did it very well. They gave $1.7 million to the American Heart Association. This is part of their written history. They cannot deny it. And they endorsed Crisco as a healthy replacement for animal fats like lard and cream and butter for cooking. And as a result, they have killed more Americans and more Europeans than the Nazis ever thought of doing because of heart disease caused by these oils.
In fact, I've seen some doctors and people looking at the statisticians. They believe that these type of false artificial garbage fats that replaced animal fat and natural plant fats may have killed more than cigarettes.
Oh, absolutely. No doubt about it. We're talking about hundreds of millions of people just by mistakes in offices right now. medical doctors in America kill, injure, and infect 15 million Americans every year in their offices.
We had an article a few years ago that we wrote because it was right there on their site, where even the Centers for Disease Control lists doctors killing people as the number 3 cause of death in the country.
It's actually accidents by doctors. Number 3.
Yeah.
Doctors are number 1. Just proactively what they do. They killed Andy Rooney. They killed Dick Clark. They killed Neil Armstrong. And they get a walk. They kill these very famous people, very high-profile people. Who kills our top astronaut and gets a walk? If Al-Qaeda would have done that, we'd have sent over drones and blown up baby food factories or something. And here the doctor kills Neil Armstrong, our top astronaut, first guy on the moon, saved 2 doomed NASA missions. The doctor gets a walk. He creeps off into the dark, just like all these doctors who are taking care of these people.
Who's Neil Armstrong? Justin Bieber. I mean, people know who Justin Bieber is. They don't know who Neil Armstrong is.
They don't know our top astronaut, Neil Armstrong?
I'm telling you,
first man to walk
young people do not know.
Oh, my gosh.
I'd say 30s and unders, literally, they know how to wear different colored socks and act trendy.
Oh, my gosh. Well, we're in trouble. Well, that was the one.
Well, there are a lot of young people that are either waking up or they aren't. I want to be clear.
Okay.
Some of the most awake are young people, but there's also trendies. As long as they just say they're trending and love Obama, everything's fine. Because they think he's a liberal.
Okay.
I think you're a liberal.
Me?
Well, I mean, in the Thomas Jefferson vein of freedom and truth and justice and choice.
Oh, yeah.
You're pro-Second Amendment, aren't you?
Oh, yes, sir.
You're pro-national sovereignty?
Absolutely.
You're pro-medical rights?
Yes, sir. I was a lieutenant colonel in the military, sir.
Well, I know that, but I'm saying, exactly. So I would call you a classical liberal. I'm just saying the terms don't mean, like a liberal today, how is it liberal to say that your kids belong to the state? That doesn't sound liberal to me.
Well, okay. Well, I want to go on to one more thing there. The theory that vegetable oils were healthier for you than animal
Yes,
fat,
let's get into it.
It was actually the thing that has killed more people than all the Nazis ever thought of, more than any cigarettes. And, of course, doctors just keep plodding on, even though the FDA came out in February of 2012, said get people off of cholesterol-lowering drugs, get their cholesterol back up. Cholesterol-lowering drugs increase your risk of Alzheimer's disease by 100%, type 2 diabetes by 52%, get them off of statin drugs, and doctors still give them. Well, the next theory that failed was the theory that prions cause mad cow disease and Creutzfeldt-Jacobs disease. They've never been able to have that proven and transmitted. So they never were able to transmit the disease by taking brains of somebody who died.
What is it really? Yeah, it's a mystery.
It's a copper deficiency.
Yeah.
We actually knew that in 1865. It was a copper deficiency in sheep called enzootic ataxia. When you look at the brain under the microscope of a sheep with enzootic ataxia, it's mad cow disease, it's Creutzfeldt-Jacobs disease in people. It's all caused by...
That's right. They just make up a misdiagnosis and make up a new term.
Exactly. And then came the genetics thing. Everything is caused by genetics. We spent trillions of dollars mapping out the human genome. 28 countries were involved. 60 years. The genome was published in 2003. And in March of 2013, the Salk Institute invites James Watson, the guy who got the Nobel Prize for the double helix.
Who also likes Hitler.
Yeah, he is a eugenics guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, he wants to use eugenics to make the master race.
He says black people aren't humans.
Well, he's the master race guy. Right.
But he's loved by the liberal, the fake liberals.
The fake liberals.
Yes.
Okay. Well, they ask him, okay, what diseases are going to be cured now? You've gone 60 years. You've mapped out the human genome. There has not been a single disease that's been cured or prevented with genetics. Which one are there? And he gets up in front of this illustrious crowd of Nobel Prize winners and heads of departments of genetics in medical schools, and he says, all the experiments we've done over the last 60 years are irrelevant. We're not going to cure cancer, diabetes, or any other diseases by sequencing genes and coming up with genetically engineered genes. It's not going to happen because none of it's genetic. It's all what he called chemistry, biochemistry, a.k.a. nutrition. And all the reporters ran out of the room. They called their editors. Their editors talked to the medical schools. The medical said, oh, he's an old man. We got 850 genetic screenings.
And by the way, here I am discrediting him. He did get the Watson Trust, another family, the IBM folks, to fund him. They funded the Nazi machines, all of it. I mean, he is a big eugenicist. But the point is, he did, at Cold Springs Harbor, develop most of the sequencing. He is smart when it comes to that. And he's saying, yes, we've got to have the obvious. I mean, look, Look, it isn't bad genetics that I have to have oxygen to live. If I get strangled to death or I die, my car runs into a lake, they don't say he had bad genes because his lungs couldn't handle the water. It was that I'm not designed to breathe water. I'm designed to breathe oxygen.
Correct.
I mean, it's like if I smoke 3 packs of cigarettes a day, it's not that I'm genetically predisposed to lung cancer. It's that it's bad for me, and it flips on, things in my body that makes my body start malfunctioning. Basically, is that what it is?
You're exactly right. And there's 2 pieces. Number one, if you're missing the cofactors, essentially the nutrients, minerals, vitamins, amino acids, fatty acids, which puts you in a very fragile state. You cannot even exist in your environment you're designed for. And then you throw in these toxins that have been created by these monsters of the industry called the pharmaceutical industry. And, of course, that's how we got paid for the war debt in the Second World War. The reparations where we got all of the pharmaceutical companies, which were not publicly traded companies when they were in Germany. They were all Nazis. They were supporting Hitler in the war. And they were privately owned. We're talking about Bayer and Pfizer.
Yeah, Germany was dominating chemicals and pharmacological.
Yes.
Just dominating.
Exactly. And so we took them as payment for the war debt, turned them into publicly traded companies.
Even kept their original heads.
Oh, yeah. And, of course, many of the doctors.
Mengele's family headed up a bunch of that.
Yes.
That's why he was allowed to go.
And he died as an old man in his bed in South America.
Did you hear they just dug up thousands of Irish children in England at an orphanage that they were killing in vaccine studies, and they threw them in a septic tank in the back?
Yes, and
they're not even getting in trouble.
Well, Alex, I was in Canada in March of this year. Canadians, everybody loves Canadians because they're supposed to be nice people, right? Well, they had what they called the resident school system, where they were taking all the Indian children, the native Canadians, if you will, and saying, look, to the parents, they're starving, you're not educating them. We'll take them, we'll feed them, we'll educate them, we'll send them back as doctors and lawyers and engineers. And the parents were starving. Here, please take our kids and feed them and educate them, send them back. Well, they just found a mass grave near a Catholic church in Canada.
Oh, we've had them on. They keep finding
50,000 bodies of children were using the experiment. 50,000 bodies. I was there.
Wow.
There.
We need to get those guys back on. Like 5 years ago, they'd find 20, they'd find 50. You're saying they found the mother lode?
The mother lode, a mass grave with 50,000 bodies and of kids between the ages of 6 and 19 who were given up by their parents to get educated. They were used in tuberculosis experiments.
See, they blame the average white person in American cosmology for all the Indians and experimentation. It's not the average white person. It's evil elites. Israel's done secret tests on Jews, the same crap. The Irish, with the British did it to the Irish kids. They do it to people here. They would do it with blacks because people wouldn't listen to them when they said that guy killed my baby. So they did over-target them as well. So there is some racism there. But these people, what do you call them? They're just demons. I mean, how do you inject little Irish kids with stuff you know is really going to kill them and call it a vaccine trial?
Well, you have to appreciate, Alex, that this all goes back to Francis Galton, who started eugenics. He was the one who wanted to accelerate human evolution he created marriage licenses so that the bureaucrats could interview people. If you were illiterate, they wouldn't issue a marriage license because they didn't want you to have more illiterate children. And so marriage licenses were created by Francis Galton, who is Charles Darwin's brother. And he was sort of he invented the first dating clubs because he wanted to have the first tall women marry the first tall men who were all blonde-haired and blue-eyed.
Yeah, they all interbred for 3 generations, and almost all of them were born mentally retarded or dead.
Something like that.
I mean, I'm in a documentary about it. No, you know everything. I got to have you back for like 3 hours.
Okay, sure.
Listen, I mean, we got more segments, but it's because you're saying it word for word, all this history nobody knows, and it's just all dead on. It's all in the book. And also, I mean, they knew 20 years ago, as you write about in the book, where they did these different worm studies and animal studies where they would give them super high nutrient diets, low calorie diets. You say it's a higher one's what's needed, and that they live 3 times longer, the worms.
Yes.
The mice live twice as long. One mouse fed the American diet, can't walk. The other one at the same age is running around in circles and lives 3 times as long. I mean, what's going on here?
Well, it's just the basic needs. Again, we talked about earlier in the show, everybody has great genes. But if you're not giving them the raw materials to maximize their ability to achieve the genetic potential, just like a car can go 300,000 miles before you need a new engine. But if you put 6 quarts of water in the crankcase instead of 6 quarts of oil, you might not even go the distance that you would get on a tank of gas. And so you have to do the same thing with your genes. You have to give your genes every nutrient necessary to maximize that potential of 200.
That's like saying I need oxygen to live.
Yes.
You're a conspiracy theorist. So you don't support Common Core 2 + 2 = 5?
No, sir. No, 2 + 2 does not make 5.
Whoa, you're a little bit of an extremist.
Well, I'm a pathologist, and dead is dead, live is live, and nutritional deficiencies are repeatable. And so this is where I come from. These are repeatable.
Well, you know the studies, the hospitals have the worst food of any place.
Absolutely. You want to get sick, you want to die, go to a hospital. In fact, it was a cover article, March 2008, in the AARP Monthly Bulletin. The worst place to be in America when you're sick is an American hospital.
So the truth's coming out. Folks, find the book at InfoWarsStore.com or InfoWarsHealth.com. Epigenetics, the death of the genetic theory of disease transmission. This book is one of the most important ever written. Dr. Wallach, you said in a month or so you'll come back for a full 2 hours and take calls on your book that, again, you think you know it all. You read this, I learned so much more, but also so much deep knowledge that hardly anybody knows. I'm not like one of these elitists that's learned all this knowledge, is on a power trip, and doesn't want other people to have it. That's how the establishment operates. I want other people to have it. And to have the minerals, to have the vitamins, to get the Beyond Tangy Tangerine at InfoWarsHealth.com, to get our Survival Shield Nascent Iodine, to know that when they want to slice you and cut you up and all this, and say, well, or we better cut your breast off when you're 10 years old, because you're gonna get breast cancer, you're gonna die. It's genetic. Well, yeah, if you're not getting the minerals and drinking glyphosate all day, you bet you are. You bet your kids are gonna go into puberty at age 6 now because of all the GMO and all the bisphenol A. And we've got to reverse this curse of the weaponized food, the water, the culture. In closing, talk about breast cancer.
Okay, well, breast cancer is a community-inflicted disease. You said it very well there. You can reduce the risk of breast cancer, Alex, by 462% in any individual woman if she totally avoids eating burnt meat. If she cooks her steak medium rare instead of well done, and doctors say eat your meat well done to avoid E. coli and salmonella. I'd rather deal with salmonella and E. coli than I would breast cancer, right? And so I keep it.
They want us to be total wimps.
Yeah,
now they want to irradiate all the meat so nothing's in it. Just, I mean, yeah.
And you can reduce the risk of breast cancer by 462% just by eating the meat cooked medium rare instead of well done. You can reduce your risk of breast cancer by 82% by supplementing with that one mineral, selenium. And that was one of my lawsuits against the FDA, which I prevailed in federal court. And then you can actually increase your risk of prostate cancer by 69% by being selenium deficient. I take a milligram a day. You're supposed to take in 200 micrograms, 1/5 of a milligram, but I take in a milligram, a full 1,000 micrograms a day.
You want total bioavailability.
Exactly. And I just swamp myself to prevent congestive heart failure and a type of dementia that looks like Alzheimer's disease called Korsakoff syndrome, which both congestive heart failure and Korsakoff is a deficiency of a single vitamin. I take 28,000 times the minimum.
We've got 1 minute left. It's all in the book, Epigenetics. But let me just ask this.
Yes.
What about 2 years ago? You guys did the Clemson study we never talk about with the medical department, what they found with Beyond Tangy Tangerine. I mean, it's just unbelievable.
Oh, Beyond Tangy Tangerine in our original Ultimate Classic, you can reduce the risk of colon cancer by 95%. This was in cell cultures of human cells with colon
And that's
cancer.
Clemson.
That's Clemson University, published. You can reduce the risk of colon cancer. You can actually take colon cancer cells, human cells, infected with colon cancer. You can kill 95% of the cancer with...
And it didn't affect the other cells.
Oh, no.
What's happening there? Just briefly.
Well, cancer cells don't have the same metabolism as normal cells. And, of course, you give them things that will make normal cell happy, kills the cancer cell.
They thrive in a sick environment. I mean, like that eternal cell line where cancer cells will live in a petri dish forever.
Exactly.
Our cells won't. But then you give them something good for them, it kills them.
Exactly.
That's why vitamin C, I guess, intravenously has been helping so much. Dr. Wallach, Epigenetics, incredible. The book available, InfoWarsHealth.com. Thank you so much for coming to town.
Thank you, Alex. God bless you.
You're amazing. In January of this year, I sent Jakari Jackson and other Infowars.com reporters to the west coast of the United States to investigate the reports of massive radiation spikes, 10 times in some cases what the background radiation is supposed to be. Professional groups, private organizations, and citizens alike were going out with their field meters and Geiger counters and picking up huge spikes in San Francisco, Los Angeles, but as far north as Seattle. Jakari and our reporters not only confirmed increased radiation, they found it all over the western coastline.
Why is this not a national news story? Why is this not an international news story that these power plants are registering lower radiation than what is being found in Half Moon Bay?
We had witnessed a coordinated cover-up by Tokyo Electric and the Japanese government of the cancers and deaths and thyroid ailments plaguing Japan in the first 3 years after the disaster. So the question was, is there a cover-up going on in the United States and North America as a whole? Turns out the EPA, within just a few months of the Fukushima disaster, with the trade winds and currents coming right into the United States, had indeed raised the levels of what they claimed was safe for the population. In some cases, more than 1,000 times what they had previously claimed was safe. So we continued to investigate and noticed that just a few months after Fukushima, tuna had been caught off the coast of the United States with higher levels of radiation. Buried in reports that got little or no attention, we began to discover massive deformities in whales and other sea life, seal die-offs, starfish die-offs, massive fish die-offs. And when our reporters went and tested the fish that were being caught off the coast of California, the radiation levels spiked dramatically.
It's almost double.
There's a reason I sent my reporters to the West Coast. It's to draw attention to the fact that the nuclear industries in the United States and worldwide are out of control. More than 75% of reactors in North America are currently leaking. In the past, every one of these leaks would have been a huge issue. Now, it's as if radiation is good for us. In fact, Ann Coulter and others have come out and said that we should be thankful for the radiation. The Japanese should be thankful because, after all, it's good for them.
Radiation in excess of what the government says are the minimum amounts you should be exposed to are actually good for you and reduce cases of cancer.
Tell that to all the valiant rescue workers who tried to secure the damaged plant who've now succumbed from radiation sickness and died. And tell that to the sailors and crew of the USS Ronald Reagan, many of which are dead and dying now from radiation poisoning. And the VA will not give them any care and basically puts them on a death panel list to wait and die.
Our sources tell us many were placed on a secret list designed by VA managers to hide the fact veterans were waiting months to see a doctor.
Bottom line, it is important that we draw attention to the fact that this industry is out of control. And we also draw attention to the fact that the federal government itself is ordering millions and millions of dosages of potassium iodide for federal workers while telling the general population that, oh, you don't need to have that unless you live right next door to a nuclear power plant.
They're acting like they're preparing for some sort of nuclear emergency right now, because we now know that the Department of Health and Human Services, for example, they just ordered an unprecedented 14 million doses of potassium iodide, which, you know, protects the body in the event of radioactive poisoning. So the federal government, they are already acting as if there's been a severe nuclear accident. Does that concern you as much as it does me?
Oh, yes, it concerns me not only as a journalist, but as a just general citizen.
The truth is, radiation is an invisible poison that's all around us, and the levels of it are going up. It was in my research to find ways to try to shield my family or mitigate the dangers of increased radiation that I discovered that iodine was a key component and that the government was hoarding it. But the type of iodine they're hoarding is something you only take during a huge disaster, not something that you take on a daily basis that from the research helps your glands and body overall to be healthier. That's why we developed with Dr. Edward Group Survival Shield, a proprietary new form of nascent iodine. Survival Shield has been incredibly popular because of the results people have gotten, but also because it's more palatable and easier for children to take. It's not as harsh as some of the other iodines that are out there. We innovated with Survival Shield Nascent Iodine, and it's still available and is excellent. But we are now very excited to introduce X2. There is no other iodine anywhere near this. The other so-called nascent iodines are black and turn black on paper. The Survival Shield nascent iodine turns electric blue purple because it's from the pure crystal. You can literally see these ancient crystals seething with the iodine. If you think Survival Shield was powerful, X2 is the next level. Take the Infowars challenge. Regardless, you're getting high quality iodine that on record the government admits everyone needs. It's essential, and you're supporting the very tip of the spear in revolutionary pro-liberty media. X2 from InfoWarsLife.com or call toll-free 888-253-3139. There's no other iodine like it on Earth.